Hello everybody and welcome back to your match preview as this Saturday 3 p.m. Newcastle United travel to the Etihad to take on Manchester City. Now in the past this is a game that I certainly absolutely hated. Now I'm going there quietly confident. It's been a big week for both Manchester City and Newcastle United. Newcastle United reaching a cup final in the past couple of weeks, beating Birmingham, going to the next round of the FA Cup, while Manchester City suffered defeat once again at the hands of Real Madrid and Jude Bellingham and co. Now I know there's a disparity between Birmingham City and Real Madrid, but this is not the City of old. This is a vulnerable City. Newcastle United have all the tools to really punish Manchester City in this game. The significance of this game is huge for both teams. This is an unprecedented season for Manchester City. They're not at the top of the league competing for the Premier League title. They're actually struggling to get into top four. Now going into this game, this is massive game for both teams because they're both now fighting for the same thing, and that is UEFA Champions League football. Even the form table and the league table suggests how tight these teams are. Look at that league table, man. You can't split them apart. Both played 24 games, both won 12 games, both drew 5 games, both lost 7 games, and both on a goal difference of 13. So literally, you can't split these two teams apart on the league table. Now, this is massive for both because it's a chance for both to get into that top four, especially with Chelsea going away to Brighton. That's a tough game for them tonight. So this is massive for both teams just to get ahead of the pack. Now, we did actually meet at the start of the season and the game ended in a 1-1 draw. There was no Alexander Isak. Anthony Gordon was playing as a centre forward, and Anthony Gordon was the one who secured a point. Josko Gvardiol put Manchester City 1-0 up before Anthony Gordon scored a penalty in the game ending in 1-1. Before we get into the game itself, Newcastle United do have some slight injury concerns. We all know Joe Linton's going to miss a game. Now, Anthony Gordon has been past fit despite picking up a knock and missing the Birmingham game, but there is late fitness tests as Sven Botman and Dan Burns. So for that reason, I was kind of contemplating whether Etihad was going to do the back five like he did against Arsenal and maybe beat City that way. But I think with Dan Burn and Sven Botman potentially being injured or not being 100% fit, I can only see him starting one out of the two. So in my preference, if they're both fit, I would probably start with Sven Botman. We don't know how fit they're going to be, so you'll probably go with the most fittest. But despite our injury concerns, this is the first time in a long time I'm quietly confident going to the Etihad. This season, we've been very good on the road, especially against the big teams. We beat Manchester United away, we beat Tottenham away, we beat Arsenal away, we went to Nottingham Forest. Not many people have went to Nottingham Forest and won. So we've actually got a very, very good record away from home this season. And what do you expect from Manchester City? Well, we all know Pep Guardiola's strategy. It's player versatility and tactical intelligence. So pretty much it's all based on positional play. Pep Guardiola has said, despite the lack of form, he's going to continue to tweak his side. And that probably plays in Newcastle United's hands. They're a possession-based team who like to play out from the back. Now, we all know Pep Guardiola evolves his football tactics from the inverted fullbacks to the inverted centre-back. One key difference I've seen Pep Guardiola make this season is having line-breaking fullbacks. And I'm going to show you images to prove this. And this is why Josko Gvardiol's got so many goals and scored at St. James's Park. They have their fullbacks attacking the inside channels. And this is something that whoever plays at fullback for Newcastle need to be wary of, whether that be Lewis Hall, Tino or Trippier, need to track their runners because this is how Manchester City are scoring most of their goals. City want to find pockets of space to manipulate positions. They want to drag you out your position to create space for incoming runners. So we need to stay disciplined, have our structure in place, and make it very difficult for City to break us down. In spells this season, City have actually moved the ball very nicely. Even against Real Madrid, they were very good. They moved the ball nicely. They look good in spells of the game. So what I'm trying to say is, City will still have their moments and they've got the quality to punish you. So we cannot have that lack of concentration away that Etihad because City will punish you because they've got world-class players despite their form. And you've just got to look at Erling Haaland's numbers to expect that City can punish you. This is going to be the battle of the hotshots. Erling Haaland, 19 Premier League goals this season against Alexander Isak, 17 Premier League goals this season. This is a moment for Alexander Isak to really show his class, show his quality, I think he's going to be right up for this game and want to prove everybody that he is the top dog in this league. I think it's going to be fascinating watching these two on the same pitch because Alexander Isak gets involved in everything. Whereas Erling Haaland slightly different. He's more of a let everybody else create, I'll just finish the chances. Now, Alexander Isak has upped his inbox scoring rate significantly this season. His one-touch finish rate has increased by 15%, and he scored the most goals inside the 6-yard box in Europe. So that just goes to show he's now getting into better positions with better quality and instinctive finishes. But just getting back to Manchester City, in simplistic terms, what they want to do is attack with 5 and defend with 5, but there's a gaping hole in the middle of their midfield and they're getting overrun in transitions. Without Rodri there, nobody's there to anticipate transition threats or break up opponents are threats, and they often get caught out overplaying. And I just think Newcastle United have the physicality and the pace to cause Manchester City real problems. Pep Guardiola is probably looking at Newcastle's team sheet and thinking, I wish I had a player like Sandro Tonali, tenacious body in midfield, somebody that'll battle with everybody, cover an enormous amount of the pitch, and also somebody like Bruno. So tactically, Manchester City have been all over the shop this season. The structure has been terrible, leaving acres of space for the opponents to exploit. But not only that, they're getting overrun, they're getting beat down physically. So Manchester City aren't as physically dominant as they used to be. Yes, they keep the ball nice because they've got technical, gifted footballers. Now, I do expect them to have a large percentage of possession in this game, but I think, again, that suits Newcastle United because we'll be able to break on them quickly. And that's exactly what we need to do. Manchester City have shown a weak mentality in defensive transitions. Newcastle have all the skills, all the tool sets to exploit that. It's quite funny this season because we've seen for the first time Pep Guardiola scratching his head looking for a winning formula. And with Akanji getting injured against Real Madrid and likely not to start against us, we can really exploit space in their wide areas. Whether that be Rico Lewis or Nunez at right back, we can get at them. With the threat of Anthony Gordon and Lewis Hall being dominant on that left-hand side, this is where we can hurt Manchester City. Now, one thing I will say about Manchester City's starting 11 is their injuries are starting to drip back through. Kevin De Bruyne's starting to get more minutes. John Stones is starting to get more minutes. Ruben Diaz, Kanji, players like that are starting to come back. And I think City looked better against Real Madrid when John Stones was in midfield. So I kind of expect them to play there again. But despite that, Manchester City still didn't have the control that they usually have. And I think even with the John Stones in midfield, it's not compatible against our midfield of Bruno, Tonali. And it's going to be interesting who Eddie Howe selects, whether it be Miley, Joe Willock, alongside them. But getting on to Newcastle, like I mentioned earlier, we've got all the tools to beat Manchester City. They're incredibly vulnerable in transitions, and we're excellent in transitions. We need to go into this game playing the game rather than the occasion. Don't think about it as Manchester City and think about it as just their players, a game of football. Because if we do that, we can physically impose our game on them, playing with intensity, being dangerous in transitions, counter-attacking quickly and sharply. And one thing I will mention that would must do, because every team that's beaten Manchester City this season have all done this, is be united in the wide areas. So what I mean by that is constantly switch the play, because Manchester City like to be compact and they move across the pitch all in unit in compact areas. So if we can switch up ball quickly, it allows us more space to be devastating. So quick transitions are proven to be most effective in exposing Manchester City's press. Assuming we play a 4-3-3 system, we need physicality, we need to move the ball quickly, and our off-ball movement will be key to us creating chances. What I love about our lineup at the minute is Anthony Gordon tucks in to support Alexander Isak. That does two things. It provides a bigger threat in the final third, but it also supports Alexander Isak, so he's not isolated. And this allows Lewis Hall to provide the width. And I think this will cause Manchester City so much problems because remember what I said earlier? Manchester City want their wing-backs to get high and wide and attack the inside channels. That leaves them vulnerable in those wide areas. And once you exploit those wide areas, their two centre-backs will stretch out and it leaves more room for Alexander Isak or Bruno to exploit. So if we're brave, commit bodies forward in transition, play with intensity, play with aggression, we can produce something special here. And a win for me is something special because even a vulnerable Manchester City are still dangerous. So I'm not overlooking Manchester City at all, because look at the quality they have on show. Umar Marmoush will probably come back in. Savinho, Jeremy Doku, Jack Grealish, Erling Haaland, Phil Foden. They've got dangerous players that can punish you at any moment. These are elite level players and they can switch it on like that. And if you take a look at these images here, I'm going to highlight exactly what Manchester City do in offensive transition. So we need to be wary of this because this is how they broke down Chelsea, but this is also how they scored their first goal against Real Madrid. And don't forget, Guardiola came to St. James's Park and scored. So they did this earlier on in the season as well. Look how high their fullbacks are. What they do, they make curved runs in between our centre-back and our fullback. And look at the way they exploited this against Chelsea. And this is how Guardiola got one-on-one with the goalkeeper. So this is something that we're going to have to be extremely wary of. So this is something that we're going to have to stop, because if we stop this, I think we'll stop Manchester City scoring. So we need to mark space rather than going to man-to-man press. In the first half, Chelsea were marking the space and City struggled to break them down. In the second half, as you can see on this image, they went to a man-to-man press. City just went more direct and they were able to isolate Chelsea in one-on-one situations. And you don't want to go in a one-on-one situation against Manchester City players because they've got unbelievable quality and their speed of thought is outrageous, so they can just pack you out of a game. But having said that, Manchester City have only kept 2 clean sheets in the last 10 games, and that was against Salford and Ipswich. So they're there to be got at. They're there to be scored against. They're vulnerable defensively. So we need to take advantage of that and be aggressive. Let's put our game on Manchester City and show them absolute no respect. Similar to what we did against Arsenal, and we can really win a game of football at the Etihad. But this is how I expect us to line up, providing Botman's fit. Dubravka in goal. I expect him to play Trippier at right back just for that experience. And I think he delivered against Arsenal. He was quality against Arsenal. Short right centre back and then Botman at left centre back, because I just don't think Dan Burns going to be fit enough to start. Lewis Hall at left back. Bruno, Tonali and Willock in the middle. Personally, I would probably play Miley just for that extra bit of quality in possession and control in possession. But I can see why I would pick Willock after 2 goals against Birmingham. But I do think this game's going to be won and lost in the midfield. We win our midfield battle, which I do think we will, with the likes of Tonali and Bruno will just have too much for Manchester City in that central areas. We'll win this game because it allows us to dictate the play and be more dangerous on counter-attacking. Then Anthony Gordon on the left wing, Murphy on the right wing, and then our star boy, Alexander Isak, as a centre-forward. But I certainly don't see any reason why Newcastle can't come into this game full of confidence. Like I mentioned, Manchester City have unbelievable players, and I'm quite worried about Umar Marmoush. I think he's looked very good since he stepped into this Manchester City side, and not many players step into this side and look good. They normally take 6 months to a year to look any decent, but he's looked like he can spark a bit of magic. So we need to be wary of him, because I think Erling Haaland's getting isolated, and I think having somebody like him will allow Erling Haaland a bit of support. So we just need to be wary of that. And Newcastle United, we seem good against the top teams, and we lack concentration against those lower league teams, if you like. We cannot lack any concentration against Manchester City, because they will punish you. But again, that's how I think we can punish Manchester City and really take 3 points from this game, because it's a huge game when you think about it in context. But I want to hear your thoughts. What do you make of the game? Are you worried about going to the Etihad, or is this the first time you're quietly confident of getting a result? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will be doing a match review, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But until next time, away the lads.